Hola. House to myself, which means the tradition continues. It's a Van Damme night. I'll lower this camera a bit. Having a glass of rum. It's a rum called Old Monk, which is a favorite of mine. So last week, or maybe it was the week before, because schedules changed, I watched Death Warrant. And I talked in the previous video about my pre-expectations of Death Warrant, my memories of it. Mostly spot on. There's one thing that I still can't compartmentalize, and one thing I was super wrong about. I said that the movie was, typical in its 90s definition of racism, where like the good guy's a good guy because he doesn't care about the difference between black and white, and like that was considered just better than necessary in the 90s. But I really forgot that Death Warrant's portrayal of Mexicans is so cartoonishly racist that even like the actors themselves, I'm sure, just felt awful cashing the paycheck for behaving that way.
Hey, puto. Remember me, eh? Huh? Culero. I want you to meet my homie, Bruce.
The 90s and Mexicans in California was just like this wild west of racism and cartoonishly silly portrayals. Although, I was thinking about this when I watched Falling Down the other day. I've never actually been to LA. I don't know what Mexicans are like in LA. I don't know how ridiculous these stereotypes are. They feel ridiculous. Like, they feel so cartoonishly stupid that it's cringe. So yeah, Death Warrant, its portrayal of Mexicans, deeply cringe. And the thing that I said that I just couldn't compartmentalize is still the sex scene. It's not much of a sex scene, but Van Damme and the female character have sex in a conjugal visit trailer. And like, I guess stayed up straight. And it comes right after the scene where she's strip searched, and I'm always thinking, like, is there some meaningful juxtaposition there, and something about like just heroes and consent and attraction, yada yada yada. I still just cannot tell. I think the fact that the scenes are back to back is perhaps a coincidence, and then the acting and the music in the trailer scene are just really good, and they establish this sexual tension and release moment that just seems like good filmmaking for a 90s action movie. I can't, even with like all of my Bechdel cast lenses on, I cannot think of a way that the filmmaker could even unintentionally be saying something other than bad guys rapey, good guys get laid. Which leads to bad sexual politics anyways, because everyone thinks they're the good guy. And then yeah, as I said beforehand, like I remembered the film well, so there weren't that many surprises. The villain plan still bugs me because it's just a bad plan. There's no end to the movie. You don't know what happened to I believe it's governor's assistant, who actually like was at first saving his wife and then found that selling the organs of prisoners was quite profitable. And also that like no investigation puts that together prior, that they're only killing perfectly healthy non-drug using people. The fact that the bad guys investigate at all is idiotic. Like, if there's a bunch of murders in a prison and it makes the paper, which is what kicks off the investigation, you just tell the paper, yeah, we're looking into it, and you move the fuck on. You don't take a Canadian undercover officer who's in town on coincidence out completely outside of his jurisdiction, and that's nonsense in and of itself. and then have him do an undercover operation, and then try and have him killed. Because that's going to create an international problem, and you've now like killed a cop. That's going to draw way more attention. It's a terrible plan. It's a terrible reveal of who the enemy is. There's no need for there to be a third act sort of reveal. It's not even a twist. It's just a reveal that the rich white guy was the bad guy. It serves no purpose other than movies feel like they have to do that. Because in murder mysteries, there has to be a chance that you could figure it out beforehand, otherwise it's not satisfying. Some non-mystery movies incorporate that as if it's part of the genre, and it's not. If you just want to have corrupt cops killing inmates, you can just do that. There's no need for the governor's assistant and his assistant, who's acting as the undercover liaison, which also would never happen, to be involved. And then the things that I like about the movie still stand as well. The other characters get things to do. It does feel like an ensemble piece by the end. And the friendships that Van Damme forges in the movie are rewarding friendships. You're kind of rooting for everyone. So yeah, it's not in the upper tier by any means. It's just a serviceable 90s action movie that kind of aspires to be a thriller and a mystery, but just fails completely. Like, it's somewhat of a thriller. There's tense moments that I like. There's a scene where a guy's in solitary and they pour gasoline under the door without revealing who it is on the other side of the door. Like, there's some good tension. It wants to be a thriller, and it could have been with a slightly better story and maybe a conscious direction that way. It's not much of an action movie. There's only 2 or 3 choreographed action sequences, and other than that, it's just a macho movie. There's just a lot of flexing and yelling and shoving and dudes trying to intimidate each other. But it's not a martial arts movie per se, because even Van Damme's opponents don't know any martial arts or anything like that. There's scrapping, but you don't get a satisfying martial arts movie. And then the Sandman being the sort of underboss antagonist that you actually have to defeat. It's okay. He's introduced at the beginning of the movie just so he can be introduced at the end. He's introduced at the end just so that there can be a big boss. And I guess it is like a good bit of writing that to have the other prisoners find out he's a cop, they have the Sandman come in, who's given a shocking amount of leeway in this prison. Even in a corrupt prison, they just let this serial killer inmate loose and do whatever he wants. So yeah, like I was wrapping up, it's not a strong movie, but not bad. It's got its likable qualities and its silliness and its dated 90s hacker character, as well as its 80s white-haired senator is bad guy moment. And then I needed to decide what to watch so I could talk about my expectations for the next movie, and it's gonna be Double Team. Because I haven't talked about Double Team on this channel yet. It's sort of a classic in its own way now. I mean, Red Eye has done a video on it. Jason Brandt's done a video on it. And I think Joe Blow did a video on it as well that actually had like a lot of explanation as to why it's such a bad movie. Like, the iterations of the script, the decision to cast Dennis Rodman coming like it wasn't like a setup idea of let's put Dennis Rodman and Van Damme in a movie together and write that and pitch it to them and then write that script. It was like a script called The Colony that was just a ripoff of The Prisoner that Van Damme signed on to, And then just iteration after iteration and bad ideas just got fed in and rewrites and yada yada yada. And like, that's why the movie's a fucking disaster. It's not Van Damme's fault. In fact, credit to him for... Actually, no credit to him. He should have just walked out. Just get sued. Just do it. Take the lawsuit. The only good thing in it, the only truly good thing in it is Mickey Rourke. He's such a sympathetic, interesting, motivated, emotional villain that you can look past the fact that his schemes make no sense. They don't do a good job of actually building up like why Van Damme and Mickey Rourke are nemesis. Because Van Damme comes out of retirement to chase him down, but then they put Van Damme in the colony anyways. Like, don't try and think about the movie as a cohesive narrative. It doesn't work. But Mickey Rourke's performance with garbage material is fantastic. And then once you get into the so bad it's good mentality, the only laugh out loud funny thing is the basketball parachute mechanism. But the little bit of world building with the cybermonks is kind of fun, even though you don't get enough of it. I mean, just the fact that it's like random bullshit, and it has James Bond aspirations, so they go to a lot of locations and announce what the location is, and then something happens there, and there's costumes and all that, and then they just go to another location again anyways. The ending with the Coke machine is laugh out loud funny, and I had forgotten about that in the interim years of watching it as a kid and seeing it as an adult, and Liv had never seen it before. When that happened, it was genuinely laugh out loud funny. So yeah, if you watch the movie for that, like if you want to like have some drinks and hang out with friends, it's a great so bad it's good, silly ass failure of a movie. And if you like behind the scenes disaster piece stories, look up. I think it, like Joe Blow must have a video on it. Look up anyone's video on Double Team, and it's spectacularly bad decision making all along the line. But don't watch it like I'm about to on your own, expecting to have a good time.